In our next section, we're going to talk about EIGRP named mode. Configuring EIGRP for both IPv4 and IPv6 on the same router can become a complex task because configuration takes place using different router configuration modes. EIGRP named mode allows EIGRP to be configured for both IPv4 and IPv6 under a single configuration mode by removing the configuration complexity. EIGRP named mode is available in Cisco IS release 15.01m and later. To configure the EIGRP named mode configuration, the command router EIGRP and virtual instance name is used, and EIGRP for both IP version 4 and IP version 6 can be configured in the same mode. Named EIGRP configuration arranges specific path types under the same address family, and the most commonly used address families are IP version 4 and IP version 6 unicast. The address family where the named EIGRP definitions for IP version 4 are made is the address family IPv4. If you want to configure IPv4 configurations, you type router EIGRP and this time a name instead of the autonomous system number. Then, if you want to make IPv4 configuration, you type the address family command. Address family IP version 4, and you define your autonomous system and autonomous system number for this command right now. The first we are defining name, then we are defining the address family if it's gonna be IP version 4 and IP version 6, and we define the autonomous system number for this. And the address family where the named EIGRP definitions for IP version 6 is IP version 6 address family. And we define this time router EIGRP and a name. Then we define the address family. This time we are using IP version 6, as you can see, to make IP version 6 configuration. And we are using the autonomous system number again. And let's take a look what we can configure under the address family config mode. Here again we type the named mode and we are going to configure IP version 6 with autonomous system 1. And whenever we type a question mark, here are the options that we can define for the address family. We can define AF interface to enter address family interface configuration. For example, we can define the metric. We can specify an IP version 6 neighbor router by using neighbor command. We can shut down the address family. We can go under the topology mode by using topology command. And we can use the EIGRP address family specific configurations by typing EIGRP. And we have the help exit address family, default, and another options as well, as you can see. But the most important ones are the ones that I mentioned. And here is the interface, F interface mode. Here I type the named EIGRP and IP version 6 address family. If you want to configure an interface, we use AF interface and the interface name command in named EIGRP. And under the interface mode, we can use authentication, we can configure BFD, we can configure the hello and hold time of the EIGRP, we can configure the passive interface, and we can configure the split horizon and the summary address to in interface mode. And the other mode we are gonna use is the topology mode. Whenever we type the topology base, we have these options. And in the topology base, we can define EIGRP specific commands, and we can change the distance of the EIGRP, and we can change the metric of redistributed routes. We can modify the metrics and parameters for advertisement. We can use redistribution commands. We can change the timers again, and we can use the variance commands too. And here is the most important part of this session. For example, here is the classic EIGRP config, and this site is the named EIGRP config of the same configuration. In here, as you can see, that to configure EIGRP, we are using interface name, and we are giving our IP address. Okay. Then we are enabling IPv6. Okay, these are the same steps in the named mode too. What we have different is IP hello EIGRP, IP version 6 enable EIGRP1, and IP version 6 bandwidth person EIGRP1 for the commands, as you can see. To configure this, guys, we are using the named mode. When we are using the named mode, we are typing rather EIGRP, and this time name is NW010. Then we are getting under the IP version 4 autonomous system 1 command. Then we are advertising our route by using network 10.0.0.255.0.0.0 command. This line is the equivalent of this line. Then, if we want to configure the EIGRP hello to 30, like in this line, we need to get the AF interface mode and the interface name. We just type AF interface Ethernet 00, and we type just hello 30 instead of using IP hello EIGRP1 30. As you can see that EIGRP named configuration is pretty straightforward. Then address family IPv4 VRF Savage Autonomous System 44 and 53, we are advertising a network with 0.0, and that's the equivalent of address family IPv4 VRF Savage Autonomous System 4453 and network 00 command. Then we are getting into the IP version 6 configuration. As you can see, as we type address family IP version 6 autonomous system 1, then we are getting under the interface mode AF interface Ethernet 00, and here is the equivalent of this line. IP version 6 bandwidth percent EIGRP1 40 is the equivalent of bandwidth percent 40, and that's it. And if we want to verify the EIGRP named config, we are using show IP EIGRP protocol, show IP EIGRP address family IP version 4 or 6 with AS number, interfaces detail, neighbors detail, topology, all links are events commands.